Honorable members, we'll take a moment for silent prayer and meditation. Thank you. Please take your seats. Please switch off your cell phones. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to welcome the ministers and deputy ministers who are here. I would also like to go back to the session we had, I think it was around the 7th of March, where we had two apologies, the two ministers not being able, one sick, one off on official duty, the deputies not being available, and therefore this House took a resolution that we write to the ministers and reinstate the questions. We're very happy to welcome both the Minister of Defense and the Minister of Justice and Corrections. So we will today start off our question session with inviting these ministers. The Minister of Defense.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Allow me, Chair, to start by expressing a word of gratitude for allowing us to absent ourselves the last time, but also for allowing us to come back and answer these questions, even though this is not a cluster of security. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Chairperson, the first question which was raised by Honorable Stock relates to Project Drama. Project Drama was successful in reaching all its objectives. There was the first phase of Project Drama, which was introduced to address the mechanical reliability and maintainability of the Oryx helicopter fleet.
Just a moment, Honorable Minister. Honorable Lund?
Sorry, Chairperson. I don't see Honorable de Gangstok. Is he here today?
It's my apologies. The Honorable Stock is not here. I have been instructed that the Honorable Klimbi will deal with the questions from both the Honorable Stock and Honorable Mohapi. Please proceed, and sorry for the interruption.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first phase of Drama was introduced to address the reliability, the mechanical reliability and maintainability of the Oryx helicopter. This phase entailed the overall and upgrade of engines, dynamic components, and implementation of airframes modifications to extend the life cycle of the fleet. The second phase, Madam Chair, of Drama was introduced to mitigate obsolescence by means of an avionics and communication systems upgrade. The communication planning system and the mission planning system were upgraded during this process. This also included hardware and software upgrades. A total of 39 Oryx helicopters were modified during phase 2. All these platforms were successfully handed over to and accepted by the Chief of the South African Air Force. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Klimbi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for this explanation. And I think now, because we're worried, we once visit Bloemfontein, we saw the other helicopters were not in good condition. Therefore, I think that we hear this from you. But do you think that, Minister, is it enough for the Defense Force, for those who are already upgraded? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Klimba. Not necessarily. I'm sure you are aware that we have a number of challenges, starting with issues of the budget of the South African National Defence Force, but also we have a challenge at times with regards to capacity and capabilities to repair some of our equipment. But as you know, what we have done, this project, Drama, for instance, was conducted between ourselves and DNL. So DNL was able to repair a total of 39 helicopters. Obviously, we need to do more. There are more helicopters which require the attention of the Defence Force, which need to be repaired. And at the time when we then receive more resources, or if we are able to reprioritize from the current budget which we have, we will repair more helicopters. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Mikilagas.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Minister, finally, I first have to note that it's unfortunate to see that you survived yet another cabinet reshuffle. Honourable Minister, with reference to Project Drummer, now that you have all these oryxes, my question is, who will be flying them? And what are you doing about the shortage of qualified pilots within the Defence Force who are supposed to be flying these Oryx helicopters? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much. I will attempt, Madam Chair, to answer that question. However, the Honourable Member knows himself that this is a human resource related matter. Here, a matter had been raised relating to a project called Drama, which had to do with repairs of the Oryx helicopters. But just to say, Honourable Chairperson, yes, for now, we've not had a situation where helicopters are parked and are unable to perform what they are required to do because of human resource personnel challenges. The issue is we do have pilots. They may not be enough, but we've never had a situation where an Oryx is not flown to do what it is supposed to do at a required time because there are no pilots. We've not had that kind of challenge. We are nonetheless focusing on training of pilots by the South African Air Force. Yes, we also have training of pilots outside of the Republic of South Africa, which is an agreement between ourselves and some of the countries which have come in handy to assist us in capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Faber.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, through you, while the Minister has been telling us about the reparations on the Oryx helicopters, and we are busy with the Defence Force repairs and so on, can she perhaps also tell us about the reparations on the 3 submarines that we've got, which is also part of a new big issue, that we can also just get some insight into the 3 submarines that we bought at huge cost that's not being used?
Honorable Minister, you may choose to respond. The original question was around the repairs of helicopters. The response, no, Honorable Faber. The Minister will choose whether or not she wants to extend this into submarines. Honorable members, you are supposed to do follow-up questions which directly flow from the principal question. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, for your comments. And yes, I'll be ready to receive a question from you on repairs of the 3 submarines. For now, I am dealing here with Operation Drama. Thank you.
Is there any other member who has a supplementary question? If there is none, I'll give the Honorable Mikilagas the last.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, I find it problematic that the Minister immediately says it's a human resource issue. It's a human resource issue within her department, and therefore I expect her to give a clear answer. It is one thing to say, well, we have the pilots, but all of them are busy flying on Flight Simulator, and none of them have helicopters to fly with. Now that you have the helicopters, now all of a sudden we don't have enough pilots. The reason why we don't, at any given time, don't have enough pilots or don't have enough aircraft is because the Air Force is at this stage in very big trouble in the sense that we don't have resources, we don't have money. There is virtually no Air Force available unless it is for a VIP flight. Now, I would like a clear answer from the Minister as to what the plans are of her department to make sure that these aircraft that do get restored or upgraded, that they actually will be able to be flown by competent and sufficient pilot staff. And not only the pilot staff component, but also it takes a whole group of experienced personnel to keep an aircraft in the air. I asked this question the last time round, Chairperson, about us losing valuable human resources within the department, and it goes directly to the heart of this question. What is the use of making sure that we eventually, and with a lot of trouble, try to restore or upgrade our aircraft, but we are losing at the speed of light human resources, and the Minister knows it's true, and it is supposed to be a problem that I hope is bothering her as well. What are the clear plans of the department to address this? Thank you, Chairperson.
You have asked a number of questions. Minister, I don't know which one you are going to respond to.
Thank you, Chairperson. You are making a point about a number of pilots we are losing. Yes, you are correct. It's not just the pilots. There's a general brain drain of personnel within government departments, not only in the Air Force, not only in the South African National Defence Force. If you talk about education, there was a time when we were losing teachers who were going to Saudi Arabia because these are greener pastures, better payment. The same applies to nurses, doctors. There was a time when Department of Health was losing a number of nurses and doctors because of the better opportunities which are provided elsewhere, other than in the Republic of South Africa. So on the matter of losing pilots, yes, we have lost pilots. On the matter of financial resources for the South African Air Force, you know that this is not a matter which just affects the South African Air Force, it affects the entire South African National Defence Force, the whole issue of cutting down of budgets. But I should also venture to say, Chairperson, it's not just the South African National Defence Force which has lost large amounts which has suffered huge budgetary cuts. It's the entire government, where because of the economic challenges, because of the lack of financial resources within government, other government departments have had to suffer as well. I've not had an incident where an OREX has not been flown because there is no pilot available, or even there are no engineers. Because you make a point that it's not just about the pilot, you also need to have engineers in the OREX as you fly the OREX. So it's a team of 3, and I've not had a situation where, Chair, we've had an accident because there was just one person at the cockpit. We've always had the full complement when you fly an OREX, and I invite you, if you so wish, to come and see and look at the composition of the team on duty at a specific time when they are flying an OREX. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. That takes care of the question which was originally posed by the Honorable Stock. We proceed to question number 35. That is the question posed by the Honorable Kaula. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much. The South African National Defence Force currently is deploying 3 battalions and 15 companies for Operation Corona to safeguard the Republic of South African borders through mobile and foot patrols. We are supported in this by Border Police of the South African Police Service, traffic departments, the Department of Home Affairs, and the Department of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries. Now, with regards to activities on the KwaZulu-Natal, Mozambique, Swaziland, and South Africa, the concept of operation is about conducting of mobile and foot patrols, apprehending illegal migrants if we do come across them, and hand over to the South African police. Of course, there is a project of expansion of liaison with neighboring states, defense forces, and the police. We've seen a number of operational successes, and Honorable Chair is aware that even though we have a total of 22 companies which are designed and prepared to go on Operation Corolla, we currently have 15 on the ground. Reason why we have 15, it is because of the financial challenges of the South African National Defence Force, so we are only able to deploy 15 out of the 22. Now, there are very unique challenges for each one of the borderline areas. For instance, there is a matter here raised about criminality and hijacking of cars which are sent across the borderline. On the border with Mozambique, in the area called Umhlabiyalingana, for instance, we are responsible for a 96-kilometer strip of borderline. There, we've had to devise other ways of preventing criminals from crossing into Mozambique with 4x4s, which they have stolen in South Africa. If you visit the border, you will see that we have rocks, huge rocks, which the South African National Defence Force has had to put on the borderline, right on the fence, so that robbers are unable to drive these vehicles across. You'll recall that President Mandela, the late president, and President Chisano then took a decision to soften and lower the fence on the borderline. But also, when we talk about issues of trade, we also talk about free movement of people. And this has affected us. Now that you've brought borderline control back to the South African National Defence Force, we've encountered quite a number of problems, and people have had to use different initiatives to try and counter the very intelligent, your so-called intelligent criminals who are doing crime in that area of the borderline. Now, because we're not working alone, we're working with other government departments, we've had operational successes. In the year, for instance, 2016-17, we've confiscated illegal weapons, we've confiscated dagga, we've apprehended illegal foreigners, a total of 6,570 for that financial year. We've recovered 84 vehicles. We've confiscated contraband worth 13 million plus. And of course, you would know that in the area of the Kruger National Park, we also are working very closely with the Department of Environmental Affairs, with the rangers, to prevent people who are coming in for rhino poaching.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Kaula.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for the response. I do want to say that because of the gravity of the situation, I think in December, the chairperson of the ANC Youth League in Umkhanyagute, when the KwaZulu government visited that area, amongst other things, pointed out that they, as young people of the ANC, are demanding that government must build a wall between South Africa and Mozambique. Of course, I am opposed to that, but I'm saying due to the gravity of the situation, that is people who are feeling it in the area. Now, whilst I'm opposed to the wall, but I'm saying the situation is such that people are now beginning to think like Trump, like President Trump. But be that as it may, Honorable Minister, the Department of Home Affairs has reported to our select committee that in addition to the official border posts that we have in the country, there is more than 200 unofficial entry points. And their other concern is that in some of these unofficial entry points, you have the security personnel accepting bribes for people to either go that way or come this way. Now, is the department aware of that? And if it is aware, what is being done in respect of those officials who are corrupt, accepting bribes, intensifying this situation where government is trying to control issues and people who are officials are making it worse by doing these shenanigans? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. I think we need to, one of the things we need to take cognizance of is generally our policy, our constitution, and the fact that as South Africa, there are certain things we should not do. What we do need to do is to find a smarter way of border patrol. For instance, we are now not just talking about fence, we are now talking about cameras, we're talking about sensors, we're looking at all of those things, things which will not harm and hurt a person for trying to cross the borderline, but things which will at least alert our officers who are working in that area. Yes, the Department of Home Affairs has identified these areas, and there are several hotspots which we have also identified. But what is good about it is that because of these, sometimes you find on the borderline families which are split by the actual borderline. You find a Mahlangu family on the other side of the border in South Africa and another Mahlangu across the borderline in Swaziland or in Mozambique. And for that, the Department of Home Affairs, together with ourselves, have agreed that we need to identify these hotspots and create what is called community crossing areas, where you will have 1 or 2 officers who will be recording all of the people who are crossing the borderline. Sometimes people cross 5 times a day. All that we need their biometrics. We need to have information about those people who are on the borderline in those villages so that we allow for them, because some of them come and shop in South Africa. The nearest shop to where they live is in South Africa. So you've got to take that into cognizance as you are dealing with this issue. So you don't have communities which can only cross at border posts. You have areas which are clearly designated for them as a community to cross on the borderline, which are called community crossing areas. Now, we're working very closely with, for instance, with regards to Umhlabiyalingana area, we're working very well and very closely with the province of KwaZulu-Natal. In their budget, for instance, in 2016-17, they have an allocation of 50 million rands, which is meant to also to deal with this issue of illegal migration, of criminality on the borderline. Now, what is this money meant to do? This money was meant to create what is called, to put concrete slabs, which are called a New Jersey barrier, which slabs will prevent these criminals from driving across in the same way that we have these boulders, which I referred to earlier on. So it is always better when the national government works closely together with the province, because you then complement one another. It's good in this case because we're working very closely with KwaZulu-Natal, and they are helping. So they've not left this thing to the South African National Defence Force, to the Interministerial Committee at national level. They too have taken initiatives to meet us halfway to try and deal with some of the challenges on the borderline.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Mikilakis.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, the Minister touched quickly on Project Copper, which is our duty in terms of the SADC agreement to also do border patrols around the Mozambican coastline. But recently there's been an acknowledgement that the South African Defence Force does not have the necessary airborne and naval assets to fulfill these duties. What is the department's immediate plans to ensure that we do fulfill our duties in terms of the agreement of Project Copper? Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Thanks, Honourable Member. The one thing which excites me about you is that you keep on making reference to a shortage of financial resources, which is very good, that members of Parliament who are part of these committees are aware of these challenges, because it is only Parliament which can help government departments to secure more money so that we can do some of the things which we have an obligation to do. Now, you're mentioning this project in the Mozambican Channel. In the first instance, that project involves 3 countries. It's South Africa, Mozambique, and Tanzania. So it is not just the responsibility of South Africa to deal with issues on the Mozambican Channel. But what is the beauty about it? In spite of the financial challenges we have, in spite of the shortage of assets, we have allocated assets for use by those who are in the Mozambican Channel. Not only that, the operations in that area have served, Chairperson and honorable members, as a deterrent from pirates coming down the Indian Ocean into our coastline. So even as you had incidents of piracy, for instance, in the Horn of Africa, right? But you do not hear about incidents which are around the Mozambican Channel down to the Republic of South Africa, precisely because in spite of the shortages, in spite of the challenges we have, in spite of the constraints which we have as the Republic of South Africa and as SADC, the region, we have an agreement of a maritime security strategy, and through that maritime security strategy, we have been able to prevent and deter pirates from coming down. So I'm just saying, therefore, in a long-winded way, that in spite of the challenges that we have, the financial constraints that we have in the Defence Force have not led to a situation where we are in a state of paralysis and certain things are not being done. Yes, there's work being done. Yes, there have been successes as a result of the deployment of the soldiers in that area, in spite of this problem. So, honorable members, and I would be happy if I hear that you are part of the Select Committee and the Joint Standing Committee on Defense, because it is true that Joint Standing Committee on Defense and the Select Committee and the Portfolio Committee of the National Assembly, that we can get Finance Department, for instance, National Treasury, but also Parliament to push that more resources should be allocated to government departments, and in particular, this particular, you cannot treat the South African National Defence Force in the same way that you treat any other government departments, precisely because we are the last line of the defense of the Republic of South Africa. I was saying yesterday to some people that we're all talking about inclusive economy, for instance, accelerated economic development, radical economic transformation, all of those things. They will not succeed if there isn't proper security on the borderline. Every day people talk about illegal migrants, undocumented migrants in South Africa. They are there because there isn't adequate resources for us to do some of the things which we would want to do. But nonetheless, thank you for raising this matter on this operation, and I'm happy to inform you that in spite of those challenges, in spite of the shortage of assets, but we've deployed assets in that area, and this success is seen by the fact that we've not had incidents of piracy in our shores. Thank you.
Minister. The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you to the Minister. We are very much excited that we're going to have a border management authority, which will be one board that will be dealing with issues of the borderlines, which had been a problem. My follow-up question, Honorable Minister, will be that to what extent is the damage borderlines affecting the operations of your officers, given the fact that now you are not responsible for the fixing of the borderlines? But just on a lighter note, the damage is on the, I'm not saying it's a defense force that is doing that. We also noticed in one of your institutions which we visited on Friday, there are a number of fence that is damaged around Kailicha there. That's by the way, but my base question is that to what extent does it affect you, Honorable Minister?
The Honorable Minister.
Chair, and thanks, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, you are correct. If we go back to the history of South Africa, I'm sure you are aware that there was a time when the South African Defence Force then took charge of all of the infrastructure requirements they have. If you talk about building a fence, the Defence Force would do that without any hesitation because they had the resources, but also they had a mandate to do so. You now have the Department of Public Works, whose mandate is, amongst others, to look after the assets of the Republic of South Africa. So whatever you do as a department, if it has to do with infrastructure, you then have to work hand in hand with the Department of Public Works. And if the Department of Public Works is unable to meet your needs at that particular time, then you have to find other ways of dealing with it. For instance, the matter you are raising, that you visited another, I'm sure it's a base here around Cape Town, it's not the only one which has those kinds of challenges. Even on the borderline, even with regards to accommodation for the very soldiers who are patrolling the borderline, our accommodation has very, very serious challenges. Now, there's nothing you can do as the South African National Defence Force. You depend on the Department of Public Works to partner with you to deal with those issues. You may have heard last week making a point that money or no money, Department of Public Works or no Department of Public Works, there are certain projects which we as the South African National Defence Force have to embark upon as quickly as possible. Precisely because even if you have your soldiers deployed on the borderline, there has to be an incentive for that. They must look forward to that deployment. They must not get to the deployment areas and find that the accommodation which is provided to them is uninhabitable. So, one of the biggest challenges is to deal with precisely with that. You can have your rations delivered every day. They may have their uniform, they may look happy, but if the accommodation, you may even have the fence that we are talking about. But if the challenges, their own challenge, their issues now of their own logistics, of their accommodation where they are, and provision of material they need are not there, it makes life difficult for them. So on this note, we are engaging the Department of Public Works. We started engaging the Department of Public Works 2 years ago already, where we were talking about issues, for instance, around some of our hospitals, like 1 mil. There's a project underway there, which Public Works was involved in, and at some point we've had to agree and sign a memorandum of understanding that as the Department of Defense, we will now take over the projects. We do have what is called a works formation within the South African National Defense Force. It's a small entity, still new, but through that works formation, we're looking at reskilling some of our soldiers who may not be deployable now to the front for combat or even for peacekeeping. We are now diverting them to the works formation so that this works formation can take over the works of renovating some of the infrastructure which we need. Thanks.
The Honorable Tereblanche, you have the last supplement.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The Minister told us in a lot of detail about all the challenges that they are faced with. I am still eagerly waiting to hear about some successes. The question is, what are they doing with the stuff that they have? We know about some challenges. For instance, 35 Squadron has been grounded since September last year. Minister, my question is, your foot patrols in that area, how many foreign nationals, undocumented foreign nationals, have they, did they get there, and how many did they take through the process to be processed? Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, you're not listening because you are fixated in raising the question which you wrote sometime, that this is what I'm going to be raising, to a point where you're not listening to some of the explanation which I'm giving. Just a minute. Earlier on, I had actually, under the same subject matter, I had given you a number of illegal foreigners who have been apprehended crossing the borderline or even committing crime. And I said 6,570 here in this room now, in this session. You were here. But because there's this fixation that this is what I'm going to raise, you've not even listened when I was responding to him, because I then started explaining, providing answers to some of the issues he had not even raised. So I'm just saying, yes, I'm giving you the answer. I am saying in the financial year 2016-17, we have apprehended 6,570 undocumented migrants or illegal people who were crossing the borderline. I don't know.
Thank you, Minister.
I hear you sighing.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member. Honorable Minister, please take your seat. Honorable Mokwele. Honorable Mokwele. Honorable Minister, please take your seat. Honorable Mokwele. Honorable Mokwele. Please take your seat, ma'am. Honorable Mokwele. We will not have dialogue which is going this way in the House, honorable members. Honorable members, we are proceeding to question number 14. That is the question posed by the Honorable Mhlanga. Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, may
Yes,
I
ma'am.
address you?
Yes.
Will you please protect me from the
You
honorable
are protected.
member? Because the reason why I spoke in the manner in which I did, it is because she continues to heckle where she is. She's not even heckling. It's better if a person stands up and says, point of order, and raises a matter. If she doesn't do that, then I'm unable to help her.
Honorable Minister, proceed to question number 14.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, please take your seat. You are on your feet, Honorable Mukwege.
Yeah,
Your point of order.
Chair, can you also protect me? Because I have never uttered a word about the minister. I'm talking to my colleagues here, and I've never said anything about the minister. If she wants me to say something to her, I will definitely do that. I have never spoken to her, and she pointed me with a finger, and you have never said anything to her. I've never said anything to you, and I will never say anything to you. But if you want me to do that, I will definitely do that.
Honorable
Please.
Mokwele, may I address you? You actually did. Honorable Mokwele, you will behave yourself. You are accusing the minister of pointing a finger at yourself. You are also pointing a finger at her. I'm going to appeal to this House for order. Honorable members, you can allow the House to degenerate, or you can allow us to get the answers we have come this morning for in this House. You are protected if you follow the rules, Honorable Mukwili. If you heckled, you will not drown any speaker on the floor. Honorable Minister, you will be protected also for undue heckling. But heckling is allowed in the House as long as it does not drown you out. Please proceed, ma'am. It is question number 14.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Minister, please take your seat. What is this question? Point of order, ma'am.
Modula Stiloisi, sometimes it's unfair for us. Gone yaanong ke lebega o kare ke motho o ke leng unruly to the House. I'm being attacked. I'm not scared to be attacked. But you must also protect me as a member of this House. People has been heckling here. Nobody has ever said anything. But because it's Mukwili, my name must be there as if I'm unruly. You have never said anything to the minister whilst he was attacking me whilst I was sitting down.
Honorable Mukwili.
Please, I'm appealing. I don't want your ruling, but I want you to treat us equal. I'm just appealing
Honorable
to you.
Mukwili,
Thank you.
You will get my ruling. I have ruled on this matter. I have said you will be protected. I have also said heckling is allowed in the House. I am also emphasizing that this House will not be disrupted. For as long as you heckle within the confines of the rules, you are protected. But as soon as you drown anybody who is on the floor, that goes beyond heckling. And I will rule on this instance. Honorable Minister, question number 14.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members. The establishment of a credible, reliable, and secure national military veterans database is an ongoing effort executed collaboratively with the support and participation of key role players, including the South African National Military Veterans Association, which is an umbrella body of military veterans. This process also includes individual military veterans associations and the Department of Defense. The database is the baseline for determining beneficiaries and the credibility of the Department of Military Veterans system. It is...
Honorable Minister, please take your seat. What is the point of order, ma'am?
I thought my honorable member is not here. He arrived late. So I wanted to say he's not in the
Thank you,
House.
ma'am.
My
That's not a
apology,
point of
ma'am.
order. Please take your seat. Honorable Minister, proceed. Honorable Minister, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. The database is the baseline for determining beneficiaries and credibility of the DMV system. It is our core business process, and for this reason, it has been identified as the most important work stream, even in the turnaround strategy which we developed last year. The department is currently mapping the processes for the database with a view to determine clear operational rules by the 31st of March 2017. Currently, our database contains 73,769 records, inclusive of 6,051 deceased military veterans, whose integrity and accuracy is being assessed and improved continuously. The figure of military veterans who are alive consists of plus minus 67,000 and are from the following entities: 15,621 former non-statutory force members, 4,042 former TBVC states members, and a total of plus minus 48,025 former statutory forces. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Mhlanga.
Thank you, Chair. Let's accept and acknowledge the responses given by the Honorable Minister. Chair, my follow-up question perhaps are in regard to this matter will be in regard to the beneficiaries of our military veterans, particularly in regard to medical cover. I think it has been now almost, if not 8 years, it's almost 9 years now since the insertion of the Act. We just want to know, Minister, how soon is the department going to enact the acknowledgement of our children or the military veteran children to benefit in the very same service, the military medical cover service? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I must say from the onset that it is a very difficult question. I said earlier on that the establishment of the database requires of us to have continuous verification processes because of some of the challenges. In the first instance, this is a department which was established very, very late. It was only established during the last administration. After what? 15 years, 17 years in government. Now we are 23. Now, the biggest challenge, Comrade Chair, we have is, whereas the Act defines clearly who a military veteran is, but because we've started so late, right? It would have been easier if indeed we had started as early as 1994 and have a Department of Military Veterans. Now we've started very late, and of course there's now a scramble for people to have their names reflected on the database. That is why I said we have this ongoing process. Now, with regards to medical care, in our APPs last year, for instance, we said our target for 2016 will be providing medical care to 14,500 military veterans, and those are the ones we gave medical cards to. And we exceeded the target, and we were able to provide medical cards to 15,740. Now, these are now military veterans. The question you're raising is about beneficiaries, dependents of military veterans. I must say that this is a matter we are discussing right now. But obviously, everything we do, we will have to have, Chairperson, some form of guidelines. What do I mean by that? If, for instance, as a military veteran, I have plus minus 25 dependents, right? Will the department be required to provide for all 25 dependents? Or shouldn't our priority be to look at the numbers of, in particular, children you have and provide medical attention to those children? If you have 4 children and I have 18 children, right? What do? Do you divide your resources to cater for all of these people? Shouldn't we be having a ceiling, for instance, where we say if each military veteran should submit a list of 3 to 5 dependents, right? So those are some of the things which are very, very difficult to make a determination on. And I've requested the Advisory Council and SANVA to be the ones who make that kind of determination, so that you are not seen as a minister to be the one who is coming up with a policy which is likely at the end to be interpreted as a policy which will leave out or marginalize some of the people. So veterans themselves must now make a determination, ukuthi, how many dependents do I have? And how many dependents should be assisted by the Department of Military Veterans?
Thank you, Minister, for your time. The Honorable Julius.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I note, Honorable Minister, that you made a note that if you have 25 dependents, I'm so glad other people are not military veterans, some people that we know. But, Minister, based on the database of military veterans, on Friday, 7th of April 2017, a group of largely young people dressed in military gear stood outside Luthuli House to guard the headquarters of the ANC against protesters. Now, not only that day, but in other ANC events also, we see these people in military gear. They posed as alleged Mkonto Wesizwe or military veterans, I don't know. And I think that it is a serious indictment on this department, because they seem to want to take your place as, you know, military veterans. These Ben 10s that we see all over the show now. Young guys, you just said that the database
Question,
of...
Honorable Julius, your time is running out.
Yes, the database of them. I want to know, Minister, did you ever do something about this? Did you inquire from the ANC what happened? Because some of your senior leaders in the party actually questioned this and they said, we don't know these people. And we want to know from you, as government, do you know these people and what did you do? Because it's a serious indictment on the security of this country. Do we have a third force in this country protecting the ANC elite from the people?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Honorable, the Minister.
Honorable Jules, I thought initially you were talking about military veterans, those whose particulars are contained in our database. Now, the security of Luthuli House on the 5th of April, the security of Luthuli House, the deployment thereof was not done by the Department of Military Veterans. Allow me to finish, Honorable Jules. If you walk out and go to any Chinese shop around the corner here, you will find a military fatigue, right? That's the truth of the matter. So anyone can pick up a military fatigue and put it on. So we can't discuss here in this house the people issue a matter of people who were deployed were at Luthuli House securing Luthuli House, because those people were not deployed by the Department of Military Veterans. So when we raise issues of the Department of Military Veterans, let's not link them to people who are out there who are wearing uniform at any given time. I don't think it would be fair. So I did not take the register or the database of the Department of Military Veterans and ticked Uguti who is deployed to Luthuli House to secure the building. I did not do that because it's not my responsibility to do that. But what I do know is that whatever benefits we roll out must be rolled out to military veterans. And for that is why we have this ongoing process of verification, because you want to make sure that the resources you spend of government, and the taxpayers, you spend them on legitimate military veterans, and not me standing up and claiming that I'm a military veteran when I am not. So I'm just saying on that matter, I think we should separate the two, Chairperson. The issue of deployment and securing the Luthuli House really has nothing to do with the DMV. We don't deploy people to do that. So if there were people there who look very young or even very old, I don't know who was at Lutuli House.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, phakathi kweenkonzo ekufuneka zidluliselwe abadala abazabalaza ngokwezimpi. Kukhona izinkonzo ezinjengezindawo zokuhlala. Ngiyazi ukuthi lezo zinkonzo zidluliselwa kakhulu kubona umnyango wezokuhlaliswa kwabantu. Nakuba kunjalo ke kodwa la kulomkhakha wabazabalaza abadala emkhakheni wezimpi kukhona labo abahlomulayo ngezindlu. Ngiyafisa ke Minister ukuzwa ukuthi nina ni thatha iphi inxexheba kulokho ekuthenini bathola izindlu ezifanele bona ngokuzabalaza kwabo. Ngiyabonga.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks, Honorable Member. After the establishment of the Department of Military Veterans, there was consultation with National Treasury. And guidelines which were given to us as a department were that where there is a government department responsible for providing a particular service, the Department of Military Veterans may not do the same. In other words, on matters of housing, for instance, it is the Department of Human Settlements which delivers houses to military veterans. But what we do as a government department is to provide resources, financial resources. So a particular amount from our budget is transferred to the Department of Human Settlement. And then, of course, we also provide the Department of Human Settlement with a list of those who should be prioritized for housing. It is for that reason that, for instance, you saw last week that the Minister of Human Settlement had a summit where she invited military veterans. It is because it is squarely at the doorstep of the Department of Human Settlement to provide housing to military veterans. However, they don't have the database of military veterans, and they have no capacity to verify that information. So we have a responsibility as the Department of Military Veterans to provide them with information and to verify the credentials of the military veterans contained in that database. So yes, if you also look at, for instance, in the area of education, we provide education support. We do. But in fact, for all those who are going for higher education, we always find ways of diverting them to NSFAS because we work with NSFAS, so that the Department of Military Veterans is not seen to be providing a service which is already being provided for by another government department. So yes, on the matter of housing, we have a budget within our budget, but we may not build houses. But one thing which is encouraging, which we want to commend Human Settlements for, they made a commitment last week that as they build houses for military veterans, they will also use companies which are owned by military veterans. What that means is that at least there's going to be job creation for military veterans. We also have that responsibility as a department of assisting military veterans to establish companies so that they too can benefit from the economy of the country. And all of that work is being done by one of the entities within the Department of Military Veterans. And of course, we have those companies in our database as well, so that whenever we can, if there's a service which we can outsource to a company of military veterans, that is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. My question is, Minister, you've earlier indicated that the establishment of the military database is an ongoing process. Now, in as much as we want to appreciate that and welcome that, but surely there's got to be a cut-off date, there's got to be a timeline. And I'm raising this to ask you, when do you anticipate that this database will be established? One, and quickly, because this answer is important to this question because it makes other state institutions, namely SASSA, vulnerable because they're also offering grants for war veterans. And so we need to establish that these people indeed qualify for those assistance that government provides. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thanks, Honorable Member, for the question. Now, you're talking about timelines for the establishment of a database. May I just remind you that even those people who are now leaving the system yet Defence Force, the moment you retire or resign from the South African National Defence Force, you automatically are regarded as a military veteran. And you too have a right to be registered with the Department of Military Veterans so that we can provide some of the services which you may require. Yes, a lot of time when we talk about the military veterans, we're talking about those prior to 1994. We forget that we have people, the rate of attrition in the Defence Force, for instance, is very high. People are leaving the Defence Force because they are sick, people are leaving because it's retirement time, and the moment they leave the Department of Defense, they are now members of, they are military veterans, and they obviously will belong to some association and will be associated with that. Now, so you cannot have a timeline. You can't say my deadline for registering military veterans is as follows. You can't. Because you have people who are leaving the system every day and they become military veterans. So it's an ongoing process. What is important is that as you register people in your database, you have to make sure that they do have a force number. Because the force number is what will help us prove that the person indeed comes from a system of the military, and therefore, indeed, the person is a military veteran. So it's an ongoing process, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. That takes care of question number 14. We proceed to question number 15, originally posed by the Honorable Mohapi. Instructions are that the Honorable Klimbi is responsible for the question today. The Honorable the Minister. Question number 15.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I will respond to this question because it is here, but actually the issues we've just dealt with now are issues relevant to question number 15. Just to say, Chair, significant progress has been made in providing quality education for military veterans and their dependents. An education support policy has been adopted, which will be implemented in 2017-18. The Department of Military Veterans has, since 2014, provided education support to military veterans and their dependents. The 2014 pilot saw the DMV providing education support to about 200 military veterans and their dependents at the time. The demand for the benefit has grown significantly. In 2016 academic year, the Department of Military Veterans provided education support to 5,807 military veterans and their dependents. This exceeded the target which we had set ourselves of 4,500. As I am talking now, Chair, as in May 2017, we have 8,768 applications which have been received for both basic and tertiary education. 5,225 of which are continuing learners from 2016 academic year, and 3,543 are new applicants. The department faces severe challenges with the human and financial capacity to process and pay for education support, given the massive increase in demand for this benefit. New standard operating procedures are being developed for 2017-18 financial year so that we can implement our education support policy effectively. It is also proposed to significantly increase the budget. I'm sure honorable members, those who serve in the committee, are aware that we already have a budget deficit in this area of work by a huge amount of money. I'm sure we are going to be called in at some point by SCOPA to explain why. It is because whereas we had anticipated that we would support X number of people, the requirement far outweighs and far outnumbers the number of people we had budgeted for education support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Klimbi.
Thank you, Ndiabulela Slalo. Ndiambulela kakhulu no Minister. Njengoba besetshilo ukuthi lo umbuzo uyafana lempendulo beyiphendwe ngasenhla. Kodwa eyona nto ndiyibulela kakhulu Minister kokuba nide nigqithe kwi-target. Ndifuna ukuthi qhubani ngolo hlobo nicele kurhulumente anisupporte apho nishota khona. Enkosi.
The Honorable the Minister, I think that was a comment. The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Ngicabanga ukuthi Minister le yesiling kutofuna ukuthi ikhulunywe. Si Parliament sibona ukuthi si supporta kanjani department ukuthi ithole imali ngoba ubahlukanisa njani emkhatsini bantwana. Udecide njani ukuthi ukhipha lo ufaka lo. Njengathi ke thina abantu sinayo siyakhona ukuthi kube na more than make ekhaya labantwana babe baningi. Mhlawumbe kuyafuna sikhulume ukuthi si approach kanjani. I supplementary question yami ithi ikhona yini indlela eformal la ni share khona le database nama departments so that nabo bakhone ukuthi ba plan, but also it assists that those who don't know that they qualify for some support, they are taken care of by the different departments. Is there a formal way where you share the database that you have currently?
The Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Member. Yes, there is a formal process. For instance, with the Department of Human Settlements, there is a committee within the Department of Human Settlements which works closely with us in the DMV, which is a committee which sits and discusses what is possible, what is not possible, which is aware all the time. They are alert to the amount of money available for spending on military veterans. This is also a committee within that department which interacts with the municipalities, because that's another thing which we should also take cognizance of. That whereas the Department of Human Settlements is a national department, but really the delivery of houses in the province is done through municipalities and the province, as well as an oversight role, etc., etc. So there is regular interaction between the Department of Military Veterans and those who are responsible for delivery of housing in the provinces, in the municipalities. With regards to education, as I said earlier on, we engage with the Department of Higher Education in particular, because that is where our challenges at times are, even though the numbers of dependents of beneficiaries who are registered for education support are in the main in your basic education. So when the need arises for us to share information because there is something which we need to do with a particular department, that information is shared with that department. If I may use the example, for instance, of defense, the Department of Defense. One of the decisions we've taken is that our military veterans should go to any military hospital when they need medical attention. Precisely because it is very expensive to go private sector route for military veterans because of the amount of money which is budgeted for military veterans. So we encourage that military veterans go to military hospitals. Where there is no military hospital, you go to a medical point, any medical point which is used by members of the South African National Defence Force. You present yourself. What is important is for us to be able, and for the military veteran to prove that indeed he is on the database of the Department of Military Veterans. Remember that even when a military veteran goes, for instance, to a private consultation to a private doctor, the Department of Military Veterans must pay for that military veterans. So it is for that reason that we are really encouraging military veterans to rather use our medical facilities as the Defence Force. In the past, for instance, members of the statutory forces, those who were in the South African Defence Force, those who were in the TPVC, they benefit. They go to our military hospitals for medical attention. We are now encouraging that all those who are military veterans who have these medical cards should present themselves to any military hospital and you will receive attention. So it is for that reason that you are therefore compelled. It is not by chance or coincidence. You are compelled to share your information as a department with a department which is assisting you to roll out a particular benefit to a military veteran. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Kaula.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I am asking a question which is related to what Honorable Dlamini had asked before, but I just want to be specific in terms of the link with NSFAS, because the Honorable Minister is saying they have got a budget deficit, but NSFAS has declared that no learner will go unfunded if they are deserving cases. Now, in order to ensure that those deserving cases do not go unfunded at tertiary, is there a link between your education programs and NSFAS? And secondly, to also find out if the military veterans, do you have any military veteran? I mean, what would be the youngest age in your records of a military veteran who's younger than all of them in the country? What should be the bottom, the youngest age? It goes back to what you were talking about earlier on. Can you just enlighten us? Your youngest, what will be the age? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Member. Yes, we are partners with NSFAS. It's not a matter of whether you want to have a partnership or not. You are compelled by circumstances to work closely with them because we do have military veterans or their dependents who are in higher education. And yes, in our case, we've not had a military veteran who has not been, or a beneficiary who has not been assisted. And of course, every day you'll come across people saying, fees have not been paid, this and that has not been paid, and we listen and we go back and check what happened. Because at times, the systems which are there, sometimes the administrative work which has to be done by the Department of Military Veterans, sometimes it falls short of our expectations. So if you come forward and say, here's evidence, I'm a beneficiary, I need support, we provide support. We are obligated by law to do that. Now, the age of the youngest military veteran, I'm sorry, Honorable Member, I would not be able to provide that information, but if the select committee or the joint standing committee so requires, we may present that information to them in terms of what we have in the database.
Well, thank you, Minister. They will certainly not be 18 years old. That is what the Honorable Kaula is actually driving you to. They will not be 18 years old. The Honorable Minister, that was the end of the question number 15. We proceed to question number 29. My instructions are that the Honorable Mikilaikis will take care of the Honorable Chetty's question. We are on question number 29, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. The matter is whether we have discussed our department's budgetary challenges with the National Treasury. Yes, Chair. We had a meeting which took place between me and a team together and with the Minister of Finance to discuss all matters relevant to budget of the Department of Defense and the budget of the Department of Military Veterans. We've discussed and shared with them our frustrations as a result of the budget constraints we have. And of course, out of that, we then put together a team, a technical team consisting of people from National Treasury and people from the Department of Defense, who will now be working continuously on matters of the budget, because ours is a reality. It's not something which is abstract. When you say, I don't have money to do A, we mean it. So we said it would be better if we put together a technical team from both finance and the Department of Defense to discuss all of these matters, to engage on a regular basis. Of course, there are certain things which National Treasury, proposals which National Treasury has put forward to the Department of Defense. We're considering those, but what is important is that there's ongoing work being done. There is a positive relationship which is there between ourselves and them, so that when we hit problems, they are aware of the problems we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Mikilaikis.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I'm glad to see that you acknowledge that the budget is not nearly sufficient, because that is most probably one of the biggest issues within the department. But we have just entered, a few months ago, a new budget was tabled for the financial year. And again, the defense budget is way below the required 2%. Now, as you know, the defense review requires at least 2% of GDP to be budgeted for the department in order for us to be able to barely try to implement the defense review. My question to you is, with the discussions that you had with the Treasury, how do you plan implementing the defense review if, despite the fact that you had discussions with them, they still do not put your budget up to 2% of GDP? How do we then envisage implementing this defense review? Because the way it's carrying on, that's just a pipe dream. And furthermore, would you agree that with the current status of our budget, that all forms of wasteful expenditure within the department should be eradicated, stopped, and those monies be used for what is actually necessary to at least keep the military afloat? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Minister.
I missed the last one. All form of
wasteful expenditures.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, thanks. Chair, one of the reasons why we decided to establish this technical team, this task team between Treasury and the department, it is to for us to be able to work out the modalities of mitigating the serious budgetary constraints we have. Right. Now, the honorable member goes on to say the defense review is a pipe dream. It's not. It's not. Yes, we're very anxious about this issue of budgetary constraints, but it can't be said that we will not be able to realize a result, a product of a long process of consultation with various stakeholders in trying to improve every country conducts a defense review. It costs a lot of money, but we've also decided within defense, in fact, as we start this session, one of the things we will be doing, we'll be presenting to the Joint Standing Committee, is progress made in implementing the plans which we had presented to you on the defense review last year. Because there are areas in the defense review which do not necessarily require of us to spend money we do not have. There are areas, there are things which we can do quickly using the resources which we already have. Whilst there is ongoing negotiations with National Treasury to assist us to get more money for purposes of implementing this defense review. You are also correct, Honorable Member, to say that the defense review has made a determination that we should get 2% of the GDP. It's our wish too. In fact, if you look at South Africa, I think we are almost in the region. We are a country which gets the smallest from the GDP. If you look at some of the countries which are way smaller than us, have smaller defense forces, get much better than what we are getting. So we are now, with regards to milestone number 1 of the defense review, we are looking at those areas which do not require us to spend money, those areas whose projects are within what we already have. We're looking at prioritizing within our programs. We're also looking at, and we are discussing this matter, we've presented it to various structures. We're looking at ways of utilizing the resources we have to generate some form of income for the defense review. For instance, the Defense Force is one of the biggest asset owners in this country. We have land. And how do you use that land to get the resources you require to effect this defense review? We're looking at those things, but of course, when we talk about that, we're not talking about sale or selling our assets. We're talking about leasing of assets, for instance, so that we may generate the necessary resources which we need.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
The Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, could you please tell us how much funding will be needed to upgrade strategic military bases like Silver Mine and 9 SAI, where there's been huge losses of equipment and of weapons? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Honorable Member, for the question. Honorable Member, I will not be able to say off the cuff how much we would need for that, but I am happy to present to you, either in a written form or through the committee, a response to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, you said something very profound at the beginning of our engagement, where you say that it's Parliament that can assist in ensuring that your budget for your department is increased. My question is, in your opinion, how could Parliament assist in that regard, other than via the route of select committees engaging and commenting on the budget and the targets that you have set for yourselves? I'm asking this question, Honorable Minister, because from the conceptualization of the budget, Parliament is not part of the processes. And all the processes up until the tail end, when the budget is presented to the select committee to make comments, but at that stage, we cannot change facts and figures because it's at the tail end. So in your opinion then, how could Parliament assist in ensuring, because we're sympathetic to the situation, there isn't even a single government department that should not be given money according to what they need to execute their mandate. But I'm just trying to find a space as to where do we fit ourselves in to assist you early enough.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Firstly, I don't want to be construed or seen to be mobilizing through this process for members for me to get more money, for us to get more money in the Defence Force. However, through the processes of Parliament, such as our appearance to the Portfolio Committee, Select Committee of the NCOP, Joint Standing Committee in particular, which brings together these two groupings, these two committees, I think that these are people who are aware of our frustrations, who are aware of our challenges, and we obviously that even through the budget debate, as it happened last year, by the way, and all these years, you do actually, for once, hear everybody speaking with one voice through the budget vote, where people say the Defence Force needs more money. I think ours is to be transparent with you and indicate the areas, the exact areas where there is a shortfall. And as the Honorable Member raised earlier on, where there's wasteful expenditure, we should be able to explain ourselves and account through Parliament, because at the end of the day, we do rely on you for support to get the financial resources we need. How Parliament will then engage with government or with National Treasury on that matter is a matter which I would like to leave to Parliament. I wouldn't want to be seen to be exposed, to be imposing to Parliament and prescribing to Parliament how Parliament should handle this particular matter. But indeed, you are correct, Honorable Zwane. It is the view of all of us that Parliament needs to be part of the processes, right at an early stage, other than going to Parliament and engaging on matters which are presented by us from our side, but without you having a say on whether, in fact, the budget is adequate or not. It's a cry we've made for ages that Parliament itself needs to discuss and agree with those who are handling these issues. Uguti, at what stage do you bring in Parliament? And how should that process unfold? Because what happens now, as you say, is you do have an oversight role. You have to accept what is given to us. You have to vote for us to get this money. But in fact, whether you are happy with the amount allocated or not is another matter. So I think that it's a matter which Parliament must discuss. How do you engage National Treasury such that government departments are allocated what they require? Of course, we do understand that there are financial constraints. We do accept that there is no money. But on the other hand, I think that it's an undesirable situation that you have people who have a responsibility of being the last line of the defense of the sovereignty of the Republic of South Africa, being unable to do some of the things they are required to do because of budgetary constraints. So we'll continue to make the appeal to Parliament, but how the Parliament then takes up that issue is another matter. Thank you very much, Honorable Swan.
The last supplementary thank you, Minister, goes to the Honorable Mikilaikis.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, I'm glad that the Minister mentioned the select committees in the last reply, because I would like to extend a warm invitation to her to come and visit the select committee. I know that she has come to the Joint Standing Committee on Defence on occasion.
Mikilaikis.
No,
Honourable
Chairperson, it
Mikilaikis,
pertains
can I
to-
interject?
it
You
pertains
do-
to her reply.
Can I interject? You do know that we do not have a select committee on defence.
Security and justice, I beg your pardon.
The defence matters are supposed to be dealt with at the level of the NCOP honourable members, only at the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. Only. And I'm saying this as a former chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. It shouldn't be featuring at any select committee. Please continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. However, she has been invited to the committee. But be that as it may, in practice, Chairperson and Honourable Minister, I think that we can acknowledge that the question of the budget, in practice, lies with your cabinet colleague. Now, you have indicated that at this stage the military have enough funds to at least implement those parts of the defence review that don't cost a lot of money. But in all honesty, if I were your cabinet colleague in finance and you would have said that we can proceed to do our job without that increase of the budget, my question to you would be then, is it really necessary that we increase your budget if you can continue to do your job with the money that you have? But you and I both know that that increase is necessary, not to prepare the country to go to war, but to prepare the military to at least fulfill its basic obligations. Now, my question to you is, once we've reached that point where the defence review has been implemented, as you say, to such an extent where everything that doesn't cost money has now been implemented, and we come to a point where it actually is starting to cost a lot of money, and we still don't have the 2% of the budget, what do we do then? Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honourable the Minister.
One, I didn't say everything which does not require money has been done. I said we've decided, deliberately so, to select those areas which do not require additional funds for implementation. Okay? Doesn't mean that the process is over. It's not, it's complete, it's not. Secondly, if we were to say, well, we'll sit and fold our arms until such time additional funding has been received, I think you would be the first one to criticize us. That's because you would say, but there are things you could have done spending the money which you already have. You would say so. So the defense review report obliges us to do certain things, and we've started to doing those which we can. But obviously, there are probably a fraction of what is required to do, of what we are instructed to do through that defense review process. So, you can't say because there are negotiations underway, therefore you'll sit and fold your arms and nothing will happen. Something has to be done, in spite of the fact that you have limited resources or you have none at all. You still have to move and do something for the sake of the South African National Defence Force. So whilst that process of the task team or the technical team, which has been established between ourselves and National Treasury, is engaging in ensuring that we find ways of mitigating these budgetary constraints, work needs to be done. It has to be done, and we continue to do that work. Now, one of the issues you are raising is you raised much earlier actually, is deployment of our assets. I think that the Defense Force has found creative ways of utilizing the minimal resources which we have. It's laughable for you, but actually it's not. It's entertaining, but it's not. It is scary. You and I should be worried about it because clearly you do understand the Defense Force from
Minister?
Chair, from where I'm sitting, I think the honorable member actually has an appreciation of the dire situation we find ourselves in. But do you really want to put the blame on the Defense Force because it has not received adequate funding? Can you also say that there is nothing being done, therefore, by the Defense Force because there is no money? No. You have to find creative ways of ensuring that you do things with the minimal resources which you have. And that is what we are trying to do. And I've made a request. I know that I think one of the chair of the Joint Standing Committee is here in the NCOP. I've made a request that we are ready to come and present to you just how far we've gone in implementing the plan which we had presented to you the last time. We'll come and present to you and show to you the areas. For instance, Chair, National Treasury, amongst other things, would want us to have to retrench, in a sense, plus minus 4,000 warm bodies per year. Yeah? 4,000 over a period of plus minus 6 years, 5, 6 years. Can we afford that? We can't. We can't, you can't, because much as they are saying you should reduce your compensation budget, because when they talk about compensation budget, the compensation of employees, they are really talking about the members of the South African National Defence Force. That's who we spend this money on. Now, if that's what you are saying to the Defence Force, effectively you are saying the Defence Force should not meet some of its obligations. And yet there are so many demands on the South African National Defence Force. And that is why I'm saying, Chair, the establishment of this task team, hopefully, and the intervention of the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force, because he too is concerned about the fact that the South African National Defence Force does not have adequate funding to run the SANDF. So hopefully, through his intervention, through the establishment of this joint task team by the two government departments, we will have a desirable outcome. It's a wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Minister, we proceed to your last question for the day. It is from the Honorable Qimbi, question number 16.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members, this year being the centenary of the tragic sinking of the SS Mendi, the Department of Defense hosted its annual Armed Forces Day in honor of those who perished on the SS Mendi on the 21st of February, 2017. Armed Forces Day was also held on the same day, the 21st of February, 2017. At which the President, as the Commander-in-Chief and the Patron-in-Chief, unveiled a Mendi Memorial Stone in Durban and also laid a wreath on behalf of the people of South Africa. The Department of Military Veterans not only held a number of memorial parades within the borders of the Republic of South Africa, they also transported 9 descendants of the SS Mendi and 9 military veterans to the United Kingdom to participate in the various memorial services and wreath-laying ceremonies in the UK. A wreath-laying service was held in 3, that's number 2 now. A wreath-laying service was held in 3 venues within the United Kingdom on Friday, the 17th of February 2017, at the Milton Cemetery, where 9 victims of the tragedy are buried. On Monday, the 20th of February, a formal service and wreath laying was held at the Holybrook Cemetery in Southampton, where all members who perished in the disaster without graves are honored. This ceremony was presided over by Minister G. Radebe, Minister in the Presidency, on behalf of the Republic of South Africa and Her Royal Highness Princess Anne on behalf of the United Kingdom. On Tuesday, the 21st of February 2017, a wreath-laying ceremony was held over the site where the SS Mendi sank on a helicopter deck of the SAS Amatola. During these wreath-laying ceremonies, the descendants were afforded the opportunity to lay wreaths on the graves at the memorial and at sea. On Saturday, the 25th of February 2015, the city of Johannesburg held a memorial service and wreath-laying service for the men of SS Mendi at the Avalon Cemetery. This too was attended by the descendants of the Mendi disaster. On the 26th of February, 2 memorial parades and wreath-laying services were held in Pretoria at Gamutaga Resort, Atteridgeville, and at the University of Cape Town Lower Campus, where the men lost on the SS Mendi spent their last night in South Africa before boarding the ship for France. These occasions were also graced by descendants of the victims, those who were able to trace and locate in South Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Kombi.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister, and thank the Commander-in-Chief and yourselves and the government at large for honoring Lamagoha Elilizwe, more especially Uguchona Ukamendi. Don't you think, Minister, or let me put it like this way, are you willing to do those each and every year? And also, don't you think that can be taken to our syllabus, to our schools, that our children can understand our history? Because more especially this tragedy, it was not exposed like what you did this year with the Chief Commander-in-Chief. What is your plan for this? It was a wonderful thing. I think, to me, it'd be wise if we can take it up. What is your plan for this? Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Ntate Qimbi. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, Honorable Member. I think one of the things we need to clearly articulate and always hamper on is the fact that the very Armed Forces Day itself, the 21st of February, that 21st of February was declared the Armed Forces Day in honor of those who perished on that day. So that's the one, I think, for me, profound manner in which government is honoring those who perished on that day. But on the matter of education, well, I think that it's a concern for many people. Unfortunately, the Minister of Basic Education is sitting right next to me here, that there are, in the syllabus, which is taught to our young people, there are many aspects of our history in South Africa which are missing. You know, I'll just talk about small things like sometimes you talk to a child about the Rivonia trial. Let me say the Rivonia trial. You talk to a child who's in matric about the Rivonia trial, and you find that the child can't identify with the Rivonia trial, has no clue of what the Rivonia trial was about. So when children at times talk about even Madiba himself, for them it starts in 1994. You get my point. And yet, this freedom is about what the people of South Africa fought for. So part of the history which our young people need to be taught, part of the history which must be instilled in their minds, which I believe will also help to instill a spirit of patriotism in South Africans, is to talk about the experiences of the past, where we come from, and even how those men landed on that Mendi ship, and what they were going to fight for, and how they were recruited to go across the ocean to engage in this war. Those are some of the things, unfortunately, which are missing, but I think South Africa is a new democracy. We learn every day, even about this. When we had this Armed Forces Day, every time when we have Armed Forces Day on the 21st, we invite young people to come and engage with us. We talk about this Mendi tragedy. You pick up there that in the first instance, they don't even know that the reason why the armed forces was declared on the 21st of February, it is because we are honoring those who died on that day, on that ship. So I think that interaction helps us to understand and have an appreciation of where we fall short in terms of our own education. So I believe that every day you take baby steps. Each time you identify that there's a weakness in this area, then of course, Department of Basic Education, in developing its syllabus, will take into consideration those matters. I did say that, sometimes you talk to our young people, Honorable Chair. Let's say somebody has passed on, and then you say, do you know who has passed on? And then the young person says, oh, okay, I just heard on TV or it's on Facebook that this guy has died. And when you say no, but the person who's passed on is not a guy, he's a leader, and then you take the young person through the history. For instance, the death of the late Kathy Katrada. For me, that was a serious eye-opener. That our young people they have no appreciation or no knowledge of some of the things which happened in this country for us to be calling some of these people our heroes and leaders. So I'm just saying that the whole area of the history of South Africa, fortunately the Minister of Arts and Culture is also here, who deals with some of those matters. These are some of the things they are aware of. These are some of the shortcomings we've identified, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Honorable.
Honorable Mikilakis, Honorable Engelbrecht, and Honorable Mhlanga.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm earning my money today. Chairperson, I first want to say to the Minister, I applaud the efforts made in honouring those who died on the SS Mendi. You can never do as a country enough to commemorate and to remember those who risked their lives for the country and for freedom. However, there is one commemoration that you did not make mention of, and I suspect it is because it never actually materialized. And that was the one in February that happened in Port Elizabeth, which has cost that city millions of rands and have left family members and friends frustrated as the cancellation was made on the 11th hour. Surely your department knew of the logistical constraints when planning was taking place. Will the department reimburse the Nelson Mandela municipality for these wasteful expenditures, as the money could have been used to provide basic services to the people of Port Elizabeth? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Chairperson, honorable member, I think we're doing very well so far. So far, so good. And I think on that note, I wouldn't want to go into this matter because it had nothing to do with us. For instance, the requirement now is that the proposal is that we should, as a department, refund the Nelson Mandela Metro. I'm not aware of how much Nelson Mandela Metro spent for that event. I'm not even aware of the circumstances under which that event was cancelled. The circumstances under which, well, you're saying my department, but I'm saying all of these events, some of them, we've partnered with them. They were organized by the various municipalities, by different stakeholders. For instance, the one here in Cape Town, it had nothing to do with the municipality, it had to do with some stakeholders. I think the legend, something, I've forgotten the name. The legends, something like that. And where we are invited to come and help, we come in and partner. Because it's not about who's in charge in that area, it's about being South African and our obligations as South Africans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ma'am, the Honorable Engelbrecht.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Minister, thank you. In regards to this event that was missed in Port Elizabeth, will you give us an undertaking today to investigate why your department did not attend the event? And will you then give an undertaking to this House that you will then refund the municipality for the money that was wasted, as this can be used, as the DA can use this very effectively for other services needed for the people in the city? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Honorable Member. Yes, investigate. I will investigate. But what I will not commit to is refunding the money because I don't even know what the circumstances were. I don't even know how much was spent. So that investigation is what will make a determination as to whether we owe the Nelson Mandela Metro or not. Thank you. And if needs be, we will appear before you and give you that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. You will appear before the Joint Standing Committee of Defense. The Honorable Mhlanga, you are the last.
Thank you, Chair. I think the answers that are forwarded by the Minister, they are inolic. They are so beautiful that we must, of course, accept.
Come closer to the mic.
I'm saying the response that have been given to us by the Minister, we welcome them. They are so unique. They are so unique. But yes, Chair, perhaps my follow-up question in this regard, perhaps before I will just directly ask the question, I just want to raise this with the Minister, that all these events that are said to be unveiled for military veterans, the department should take charge. For example, in the Western Cape, there were housings departments, there were housings that were handed over. And those housings were directly for military veterans, but they were claimed by the province that are being developed and given to military veterans by the Western Cape government. I think you must respond on that.
Honorable Mhlanga,
of course, let me go to my question.
SS Mendy.
let me go direct to my question, Madam Chair. Let me go direct to my question. Honorable Minister, in regards to assessment, well, perhaps we don't have much information, but I think we will be assisted by you. In regard to those family members that are still alive, what is it done by the department in terms of compensation? And in that case, I also want to intertwine this question with regard to military compensation for war veterans or struggle veterans who participated in liberating South Africa. What is the status quo in regard to compensation? Thank you.
Honorable Minister, there's a new question on compensation which the Honorable Mhlanga is smuggling in. It is up to you to respond.
Thank you very much, Chair. I thought you, Honorable Chair, I thought you were closing it precisely because he was really trying his luck. You've smuggled that question. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister Mapisa Ngakula, thank you very much. As we started at the beginning, we knew that you had official business. We also know that you are traveling today, again on official business. We thank you very much, ma'am, for availing yourself. Thank you. Honorable members, we proceed to the questions to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. The Honorable Mhlanga posed a question. Honorable Minister of Justice, it is question number 10. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and let me use the opportunity to thank you for indulging us by allowing us today to respond to the questions that we could not at the time, as we were battling heart failure in an ICU at a hospital, and would like to thank all the people who gave support during that difficult time. Let me start by indicating that yes, indeed, the Department of Correctional Services has a range of programs which in large measure are calculated to achieve two critical objectives. One is to address offending behavior on the part of inmates, and secondly, to empower them with relevant skills that would enable them to find it easier to reintegrate back into society and to make a meaningful contribution for their own good and for society in general. Maybe I should also take the opportunity that one way in which we are able to assess the impact of our interventions is by looking at the extent to which, for example, those who are on parole or on community corrections comply with parole conditions. And I'm happy to say that over the past 3 years, there has been a significant improvement in this regard, where when we started, about 85 to 86% of such inmates complied with parole conditions, and currently we're talking in the region of 97, 98, and even beyond percent of compliance. One of the interventions that we have introduced is to ensure that firstly, victim-offender dialogue takes place in all cases, unless, of course, a victim is not amenable, to ensure that there is an attempt to reconcile where possible.
the perpetrator and the victim to smooth reintegration. But we also assess through risk assessment tools to determine the risk profile of an offender, such as looking at reports of psychologists, of social workers, in order to make a sense of what are the prospects upon releasing an inmate of them going back to their offending behavior. And perhaps these are some of the interventions that have enabled us to significantly reduce non-compliance with parole conditions. But insofar as the programs themselves are concerned, and let me immediately express appreciation to all the other departments and other non-governmental organizations for partnering with us in respect of a number of these areas of implementation of various programs, such as, for example, the Department of Basic Education, that ensures, firstly, that we're able to deliver basic education to those that need it within our correctional facilities, the Department of Higher Education, which over and above assisting in facilitating access to higher education for our offenders, also assist with the accreditation of some of our training programs so that they are able to live with certificates that are recognized so that they're able to seek employment. And maybe I should touch a bit on the issue of criminal records, which many ex-offenders have complained about as one of the barriers that makes it difficult for them to reintegrate. To say that, and maybe it is a call that we make to potential employers out there, that the mere fact of a person having a criminal record ordinarily, unless there are express legal barriers to that effect, should not serve as a barrier for a person to be employed. It all should depend on the nature of the offense, how the person has responded to rehabilitation, and of course the nature of the job that they seek to participate in. We should, however, indicate that with the participation of a number of non-governmental organizations especially, and other corporations in some instances, we have been able to successfully reintegrate many ex-offenders, and many through empowering themselves through education and other means, have reached high levels of qualification and competency that has enabled them to effectively play a meaningful role in society upon leaving our
Thank you,
facilities.
Minister.
Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mhlanga.
Thank you, Chair. We again welcome the response of the Minister in this regard. Chair, my follow-up question will be on the issue of reintegration of the ex-offenders to the society, mainly on issues of social economic empowerment. What are the programs that the department has in terms of that regard? The social economic empowerment on empowering this of ex-offenders who were thoroughly trained by the department, as the minister has said, in regard to self-employment and business opportunities. And of course, as well as the issue of job placement, because it doesn't assist us to rehabilitate these people and not making sure that they are properly employed in some form, regardless of the barriers that the minister has already highlighted. Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me indicate that the focus of the department hitherto in terms of its policies has been more inward-looking, looking at what are the needs of offenders during incarceration and the provision of training, access to education opportunities, etc., has been in respect of those offenders who are currently serving term with us. And the idea was really to prepare them during the duration of their stint with us in anticipation that at some point, whether upon completion of sentence or upon placement on community corrections or parole, they would be out there needing the skills and the preparation that we shall have invested in them during the said period. There is growing sentiment that that is not adequate, that the environment in a correctional facility is different to the environment that an offender, who in some instances may have spent 20 years, which could effectively be a lifetime for many. Some offenders have to be trained with basic things such as crossing a street, because when they were incarcerated, perhaps in that town, there were no robots at the time. You know, the risk of being knocked down by cars, etc. So things that we take for granted. Some have been incarcerated prior to the digital age. And as we know, the world over the past 20 years have changed dramatically. Some may have come into incarceration during the days of apartheid, and South Africa is a completely different world today. So the first thing to mention really is that, first of all, we target, in terms of a sentence plan, the needs of an offender in terms of the programs that are tailor-made for the offender, be they addressing offending behavior or skilling the offender whilst they are in incarceration. But the thinking going forward and in partnership with others, such as other departments and non-governmental organizations especially, is to look at programs beyond incarceration that could further strengthen our efforts to ensure full integration into society. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Mikilekas.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I'm sure that you would agree with me that rehabilitation is the most important aspect of correctional services. Without rehabilitation, there's no point in correctional services. There's no point in having people, after they've served their sentences, go out and be criminals with doctorate degrees. They need to be able to be reintegrated into our society and contribute as law-abiding citizens to the cloth of our society. Now, as you've said, rehabilitation has received a little bit more attention over the last 3 years, but as the situation is currently, it is still a drop in the ocean compared to the rest of the budget. My question to you is, at what stage can we expect proper, real rehabilitation, the core of what correctional services should be about, to be at the forefront of the department's agenda again? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for that question. It is indeed true that over the past 2 decades, the department has struggled to make the necessary budgetary shifts in line with the priority shifts based on a shift in policy and perspective, as you have correctly identified, and of course as articulated in our policies, such as the White Paper and the current Corrections Act. The reality is that first and foremost, we have a constitutional and international law obligation to ensure that the well-being of inmates, and I think the question that follows will elaborate this even further, is of paramount. Such rights as nutritional rights of inmates being kept in humane conditions, and ensuring that the norms and standards that are set by our law and international standards are complied with is paramount, and that costs money. I know some people go so far as to say that the quality of meals you get at a correctional facility make you wonder whether this is not an incentive for people to want to offend in order to stay in our correctional facilities. But I may just tell you, Chairperson, that when the time comes, there is no single inmate who shows any inclination to spend another day in a correctional facility, regardless of the conditions, the favorable conditions we try to maintain in our facilities. However, it is true that with the overcrowding, crowded conditions that we continue to battle with, and with resource constraints that we have, including issues of human resource capacity constraints, we are not able in all instances to fully provide all the necessary interventions through rehabilitation and other means to ensure that inmates emerge out of our system better people that they should. But as I said earlier, if you look at the statistics, it seems as if we must be doing something right somewhere if compliance has improved from the erstwhile 85 to 86% compliance to the current between 97, 98 and beyond percentage in terms of compliance with parole conditions, which means that, and that includes a reduction in reoffending amongst ex-offenders who are on parole or in correctional community correction programs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, we do have a problem of parolees that commit repeated offenses. They are released by parole, they go back to the communities, they get integrated, but they repeat the offenses, they go back. My question then, Minister, is what mechanisms are there to ensure that there is monitoring when they've been released to ensure that they adhere to the conditions of the parole? And also, if the Honorable Minister could comment on the effectiveness of corrections. Thank you, Chair.
The Honorable the Minister.
Before we release an inmate into our parole program or into community corrections, there is stringent scrutiny that takes place. Firstly, there is what we call the profile of the offender, which is a file on the offender that details all the history from the day the offender joined us. And one of the critical documents in that file is, of course, firstly, it's the sentence remarks of the presiding officer who convicted that offender, where we can draw a lot of valuable information about the offender and the nature of the offense, etc. We then generate a sentence plan for that offender, which outlines the tailor-made program for that offender for the duration of their stint with us that seeks to address some of the challenges or the circumstances of that specific offender, as I alluded earlier. If an offender, for example, is serving life, generally after 20 years they are entitled to be considered for parole. And the manner of it is that a committee at the correctional center compiles that profile that outlines all the elements that need to go into assisting a parole board to determine whether this is a suitable candidate for parole. That would include a report on psychosocial behavior of the offender during incarceration and how they've responded to rehabilitation, etc., which also assist in determining the risk profile of the offender, which the parole boards take into consideration as one of the considerations that it must to determine whether they should recommend their release. If it's a lifer, it goes to the National Council of Correctional Services, that's headed by 3 judges, who in turn also evaluate and recommends. And again, if it's a lifer, ultimately I make the decision whether that lifer should be released or not. I can tell you now that virtually every week we get taken to court for refusing to grant parole. And of course, last week you'd note that we had the famous or notorious case of a certain Mr. Janus Walus, where the court is requiring us to return with certain further heads of argument, arguing against his release. So it happens all the time that any offender, like I said, doesn't want to spend another day in a prison, and they'll do everything within their power to challenge any decision not to be released. But we make sure that where offenders deserve to be considered for parole or to be released on parole are actually released as soon as possible, and where we have doubt, we make sure that that doubt is first removed before we can grant parole. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Just my question on the issue of rehabilitation and integration to the society. My understanding is that the reason why the department was called Correctional Services, not Department of Prisons, was for correcting the behavior of the offenders. And once that behavior has been corrected, then they are easily integrated into society. But it looks like the integration has some limits. For example, if a person having acquired the skills and education, but if the person now in society has to apply for a vacancy, that record is a hindrance for the person to be employed. Secondly, even with the law on Parliament, for example, a person who has been an offender, even if that person, his behavior has been corrected, that person cannot be a member of Parliament. There's a law preventing a person, if I'm not mistaken, from becoming a member of Parliament. So for me, that means, therefore, there's a limitation to the integration of the previous offenders. If the Minister could respond to that. Thanks.
Honourable Minister.
The issue of criminal records, whether we still need such a system in our dispensation, how fair it is, etc., has been the subject of a lot of debate over a long period of time. Let me indicate that my understanding is that globally there is a general system of criminal records which you find in most countries in the world. So South Africa is not unique in this regard. There are 2 ways in which your criminal record can be expunged. If it's a minor offense that, for example, involved a fine and there was no element of incarceration, your criminal record is expunged administratively upon you making such a request upon the expiry of 10 years. So wherever there has been a conviction by a court, because the only time you have committed an offense under our system, it's if a court finds you guilty of an offense. Otherwise, any more serious offenses can only attract or qualify for expungement of the criminal record or the deletion of the criminal record by the President in terms of, I think it's Section 84 of the Constitution, which is an exclusive competence that the President enjoys. We receive these applications on a daily basis. We assess them in terms of merit, taking into account a number of factors which time will not allow me to elaborate on. And as justice, we recommend to the President whether to grant or to refuse. And ultimately, it is the authority under the Constitution of the President to grant or to refuse. But let me indicate that even with the example you've given of members of Parliament, the mere fact that you have a criminal record as a candidate for Parliament or municipality, etc., is not an automatic bar from you to contesting for candidacy to come to Parliament. It's only if your conviction complies with certain conditions, such as, I think, incarceration for longer than 12 months without the option of a fine, and I can't remember which other criteria. So it's not necessarily so that the mere fact. But then again, as I indicated, there is a possibility to apply for presidential pardon under the Constitution, and many applications do get received on a daily basis. And maybe one day I can talk more about a special program that was sought to be introduced to deal with political offenses in the past and where we were with that process, but time wouldn't allow me to deal with that specific question at this point in time. Safe to say that it is not necessarily so that employers are obligated by law in all instances to refuse people employment just because of them having a prior criminal record, especially if they disclose that fact. And discretion should take into account the nature of the offense, the nature of the job applied for, etc. I can just conclude there that I've served on the Magistrates Commission, I've served on the Judicial Services Commission. There has been consideration, especially with regard to minor offenses, of candidates who still had criminal records, but because they disclosed and taking into account the nature of the offense when it was committed, those people were appointed into those offices. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, we move on to your second question for the day. It is question number 27. It was posed by the Honorable Mikilaikas. Question number 27.
Thank you once again, Chairperson. Let me on the onset indicate that the rights of inmates are wide and diverse, bearing in mind that like all other human beings, ordinarily they enjoy all the rights that everyone else, be it under the Constitution or the law, would enjoy, save for those rights that are curtailed as a result of incarceration by virtue of judicial sanction upon conviction of a criminal offense. And therefore, because of the wide-ranging nature of the rights we're talking about, equally, those that have a responsibility of ensuring that those rights are honored would effectively entail virtually everybody that works with offenders. It may even extend to persons who are outside of the correctional system itself, to the extent that the Constitution and the law obligates them to honor such rights. Now, more specifically, of course, the correctional centers where inmates are kept have persons who head those correctional centers. And they have, first and foremost, an obligation to ensure that they run those centers in a manner that conforms to the norms and standards set out in our laws, in our policies, in ensuring, amongst others, that these rights of inmates are honored. But over and above, and that also includes the individual officials of corrections working in those centers, depending on the circumstances. But over and above that, firstly, internally within the management system of corrections, I refer to the heads of centers, there's area managers, there is regional commissioners, and of course there are chief deputy commissioners responsible for different areas, notably the chief deputy commissioner responsible for incarceration, who's responsible for what goes on generally in our correctional centers, one that's responsible for remand detention, who are responsible for the general effective running of correctional facilities, who therefore have a responsibility to ensure that these norms and standards are adhered to. But we work in partnership with other stakeholders in this regard. There is a statutory body which is independent, headed by a judge, currently a retired judge of the Constitutional Court, Justice van der Westhuizen, who heads a structure called JICS, Judicial Inspectorate, which has unfettered access to inmates, ensuring that where they have complaints, those complaints can be entertained and dealt with, and generally the well-being of inmates. Let me also indicate that since May last year, when the Public Service Commission issued a report on the conditions in our facilities, including issues of overcrowding, access to health care, nutrition, etc., the National Commissioner of Corrections set up a task team involving management at national and regional level to look into the specific concerns that had been raised, which were further reiterated following judicial visits by two or more justices of the Constitutional Court. And of course, you know of the case on Polsmo that we dealt with in December last year, which gave certain directives, which we are confident we would have fully complied with in respect of that facility by the deadline of next month. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Mikilekas.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Minister, surely you would agree with me, though, that as political head of the department, to a certain extent the buck stops with you. You as the minister need to know what is going on in the correctional facilities, especially when it comes to something as important as human rights violations. Now, I haven't yet said that there are such instances, but should they be found to occur, then surely to some extent, as political head of the department, the buck stops with you. Now, Minister, your deputy has visited Polsmoor Prison with us. The finding of the Cameron report, which I shall not repeat here. However, these findings indicate instances which I find close to what can be called human rights violations. I don't want to focus only on Polsmoor. My question is not about that. But it has come to light that the conditions at correctional facilities elsewhere in the country do not look much better. Would you, as the political head of this department, take full responsibility if an independent body were to find that inmates' basic human rights are indeed violated in any correctional facility in this country? And Chairperson, it takes a very short answer to reply to that question. Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
I have already been hauled before the Western Cape High Court in December last year in respect of the conditions in Polsmo. And as you'd recall, on the 5th of December, a rule NISA was issued on a return date of the 21st of December to show cause why an interim order, the earlier interim order, should not be made final by the court. And as a result of further affidavits that we submitted to the court effectively agreed to what you could refer to as a draft judgment, which we prepared for the court, in which we clearly outlined the interventions we'd be making and the timeframes we would be able to meet those targets in conforming to the court order in respect of the conditions that were not desirable that the court had identified in respect of that facility. One way of addressing, say, the issue of overcrowding, which was at the core of the problem, was to convert Polsmo altogether into a detention facility or a remand detention facility, and removing all sentenced inmates out of that facility and moving them elsewhere within the Western Cape jurisdiction in order to meet the target that we eventually agreed with the court of, was it 160% overcrowding, as opposed to, I think it was between 200 and 300% overcrowding, which prevailed at the time. I can also report that based on the report I've received from the department, the hot water boilers that were dysfunctional, which resulted in inmates not having adequate access to hot water, has since been fully resolved, such that every inmate now has full access to hot water. The issue of laundry facilities as a result of a breakdown with some of the big laundry machines has also been resolved, such that inmates are able to be provided on a regular basis in terms of the norms and standards of the department, with clean blankets, which was a factor that was affecting their health, things like skin diseases, etc. There's a number of other interventions that have been made to ensure, and of course, there is still a challenge of overcrowding nationally, which stands at about 137%, much lower in your more remote areas and much higher in your more densely concentrated areas like your urban centers. It is a challenge of addressing infrastructure on the one hand, on the other ensuring that through the fora which the Chief Justice, for example's chair, like the NECC, the National Efficiency Enhancement Committee, and the provincial version thereof that are headed by judge presidents, to monitor the speedy resolution or finalization of criminal matters, that through those efficiency enhancement efforts, we're able to ensure that the turnaround time for people awaiting trial is reduced so that people do not spend too much time with us awaiting their matters to be resolved. So those are just some of the different strategies that we are implementing in an integrated manner to ensure that we reduce overcrowding whilst at the same time we improve conditions under which inmates are kept in our facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Nyambi.
Thanks, Chair. Honorable Minister, in ensuring that the department adheres to the norms and standards, is it possible to simplify it for us in terms of percentage per annum, this challenge of basic inmates' rights violation? if you can share percentage-wise per annum, what is this current situation?
The Honorable the Minister.
Chairperson, it's a specific question. Let me indicate that we present to Parliament annual performance plans. And in these annual performance plans, we set targets or indicators which we monitor on a monthly basis. And these are wide-ranging in that they focus on a number of aspects that impact on, amongst others, issues that relate directly to the well-being of inmates and ensuring that there is compliance with their human rights. Such indicators that are monitored in the annual performance plans, for example, include overcrowding levels per center and nationally, looking at the national average, not only looking at the national average, but looking at the hotspots, and therefore enabling us to identify strategies. Honorable Nyambe, I think, is from Mpumalanga. There is a Barberton new correctional facility, as well as actually it's a significant expansion that will be coming on stream. Soon we'll be opening Zanin, which had hiccups, as a new facility destined to house about 480 inmates, etc. So there's work that's ongoing to expand infrastructure, to fix existing infrastructure. And of course, amongst other things, we're looking at using offender labor in the face of challenges with public works, whilst at the same time we use the opportunity as part of empowering such offenders with various skills in the construction environment. And those are the plans going forward. We monitor natural deaths, we monitor assaults, assessment of sentence planning to ensure that this sentence plans are actually implemented in respect of individual offenses, etc. And we're able to draw percentages in terms of performance as we go along. So there are assessment tools, monitoring tools to ensure that we keep ourselves informed of how we're progressing with implementation using the APPs, as I indicated, and the monthly reporting that I alluded to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Ncita.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, in appreciating your response to the question by the Honorable
You keep on
member.
pushing it back and we keep it.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that there is a commission that is responsible to monitor the safety and protection of evaluation rights of the inmates. What I'm interested to know, Honorable Minister, is how often are they reporting to the department, and are those meetings open to the members of the public? Because it would be interesting to hear their findings, because I am sure they are about to assist the department in ensuring that they comply with the mandate, legislative mandate they have of ensuring that the rights, dignity of inmates is protected, and also they are treated humanely inside there. Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Minister.
Pardon me. Chairperson. The Judicial Inspectorate, as I indicated, is currently headed by a retired judge of the Constitutional Court, Justice van der Westhuizen. And it has as its infrastructure, if you like, a presence at our various correctional centers through individual officials who have unlimited access to our correctional facilities, are able to entertain complaints from inmates. That is over and above the right of inmates to lodge complaints with heads of correctional facilities. And in terms of our code, when such complaints are laid, they must be reduced to writing, put in a register, and of course, ideally resolved within a week or escalated as need may be. I may just deflect a bit and say some of us, almost on a 24-hour basis, get calls, SMSs, WhatsApps, complaints on various matters, and which we also channel accordingly. And we've also asked the department to start looking at some centralized mechanism through which especially members of the public or even inmates can phone in and lodge a complaint. But currently the system is such that an inmate has full access to the Judicial Inspectorate. They have full access to the head of the facility if they have a complaint to lodge. And over and above that, members of the judiciary, magistrates have the right, unannounced, to visit any facility and to document any instances of human rights abuses. The reports that JICS produces in terms of law are tabled with Parliament annually. So members of Parliament have full access to such reports, and of course, as part of the oversight function of this august House, we may be directed, arising out of such findings, as to any further intervention that we may need to implement on our part to address any concern that may have been raised. I think I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary goes to the Honorable Mikilakis.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, in my initial question, I had such good intentions to indicate that my question is not on Pollsmoor. And then the Minister gave us a whole running commentary on the good things that they've been doing at Pollsmoor since they've been taken to court. My question is on what the Minister replied to that question at least, and that pertains to the overcrowding, which also goes to the rights of the inmates, where the Minister said that some of those inmates have been moved to other facilities within the jurisdiction of the Western Cape. Now, Minister, I don't completely agree with that, because in my own constituency, Winburg Correctional Facility has received a few inmates from the Western Cape, which I suspect might be for the reason of dealing with overcrowding over here. Now, they've been moved all the way 1,000 kilometers away to the Free State. My question is, also part of the rights of inmates is for them to be visited by their families. Most of those families are not going to be able to afford visiting their relatives 1,000 kilometers away. So you are dealing with one right over here by moving them somewhere else, and then another right is being violated in the process. How do you envisage that that your department is going to deal with that specific problem arising from moving the inmates? Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
I do not have the specific facts, and obviously the circumstances would, assist us to better assess that particular situation. Let me indicate that this can be a basis for a complaint that an inmate can lodge if indeed they feel their rights have been violated, or they have not been enabled to fully exercise such rights as a result of such an intervention. Let me indicate also that this is just one of the many things that inmates can lodge complaints about. We got complaints such as inmates indicating that the facilities they have been deployed to are not conducive for them to pursue their studies because of the conditions or the environment. There's a whole lot of personal circumstances that can lead to an inmate requesting that some kind of adjustment be made to take care of their needs, issues of disability, etc. And the rule is that the department must assess each case on its merit, and on the basis of that, find the most practical and convenient solution to that particular problem. So it may well be that there has been cases, bearing in mind, of course, that sometimes you find that an inmate has committed offenses all over the place, got convicted in a particular area, sentenced to that area, but their original home may be thousands of kilometers away. And it may well be that somebody who was in the Western Cape actually has benefited from being moved to the Free State or elsewhere. But like I say, speculation wouldn't take us far. It would be better to entertain such complaint on its merits and look at what are the practical solutions that can be found to suit both the unique circumstances of the inmate on the one hand and the practicalities of the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Masuta, we thank you for coming. We are aware that you have been having challenges with your health. We hope that you feel better and recover. And thank you very much. Those were the two outstanding questions for you today. Honorable members, we shall proceed to the social cluster, and then call on the Minister for Arts and Culture. Honorable Minister, your first question this morning is one that is posed by the Honorable Julius. You are welcome, and you can take the stand.
Thank you, and thank you very much to the member who asked the question. Well, firstly, Chairperson, we are aware, as the Department of Arts and Culture, of the plans to erect a monument in honor of the President of the Republic of South Africa in the Northwest. We're aware of that, but the question really of the budget doesn't arise because it is a provincial initiative. The people would best answer that kind of a question would be the province of Northwest. The promotion and development of arts and culture is a concurrent function of the competence of the province and national. To that extent, I would say that the details, therefore, would be, or the province of Northwest is best positioned to give details to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm honestly a bit disappointed that this is the National Council of Provinces, and we are allowed to ask questions even of a local government sphere. This is a provincial question. The minister had ample time to go to send the question to the province and to answer us in the NCOP. I don't take that answer, ma'am, as it's an excuse not to answer the question. The minister didn't get this question this morning. He had ample time to go to the province and seek an answer. It's arts and culture in the province. It doesn't mean that the minister is arts and culture of a national sphere. What else is he doing? There's arts and culture on the ground, so the minister must answer this question.
Thank you. Please take your seat, Minister. Honorable Julius, concurrence means just that. It means that the national department has certain responsibilities. It also means that the provincial MEC has certain responsibilities. It also talks to how the demarcation of responsibilities, even within. So a national minister, where there is concurrence of powers, cannot willfully, as he likes or she likes, come into a province and whatever. And I think that we should accept that the minister is actually doing what we expect him to do. It is for the National Council of Province to take the battle where it is. Nothing stops you from asking that question to the province to give you the answer. Now, the minister could have asked the MEC to give the details, but the minister would not have been able to explain why the budgets and whatever, because it is not his doing. We have raised, Minister, the issues of concurrence. I think when we turned 10 years, some of us felt that South Africa needs to come back and deal with concurrence in arts and culture, in health, in basic education, because it does give us that problem. So, in a way, the minister is right. You are frustrated, but you must also know who does what. Earlier on, honorable members, I was not being funny when I said, we as the NCOP interact with the defense via the Joint Standing Committee, and that simply talks to the competence. It's a national competency, it does not have a provincial jurisdiction, and therefore the way we will relate is that way. I think that we do need to do what we need to do more. Invite the MECs, either to portfolio committees and select committees, or even to the House to take certain questions. But, Minister, you may not continue to hazard a response on this one.
Exactly what I wanted to say, Honorable Chair. Especially the Schedule 4 of the Constitution is very clear on what you have said. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, is there any other follow-up on the question? Thank you very much. Honorable members, Honorable Hatton.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. It appears that the Minister did his homework on this issue. Now, I would like to thank him for that. But can I then get the Minister's and the Department's policy on the erection of monuments for people who are still alive? Thank you.
Well, it is
Honourable Minister.
It is a new question, Chair. No, it is. It is. You are asking something else. The erection, what you are asking, is the erection of the new, of people who are alive. What we have in the question here has nothing to do with people who are alive or dead. There was a specific question about a specific place on the statue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Man. Honorable members, I have a bit of a dilemma. I am advised that we should break for lunch at some point and come back. And the advice is that we should, Minister, after taking only one of your 6 questions, break for lunch now and come back after lunch. Order. You are allowed to heckle members. You are not allowed to interject me. That's a new rule. Honorable members, I propose that we break. Shall we break for 45 minutes? We therefore break and come back in 45 minutes. The House is adjourned for lunch.